all that being said, we've brought up Kyrie a little earlier in the sense of how he's fit next to Luka. But Kyrie is now going into Boston, where, as I said before, and Tim was just notified of this, he was traded to Boston from Cleveland and played a couple years there. There's the whole stepping on Lucky. There's the whole burning the sage with the walking stick. There's the whole, I want to stay here and then I'm going to leave. And there's so much history there, and it's ugly, right? And Kyrie hasn't played particularly well when he's played in Boston since leaving Boston, most notably that playoff series with the Brooklyn Nets in 2021 or 22. I lose track of the years. I think it was 22. Because 21 was the year where if Kyrie's ankle doesn't turn against Milwaukee, the Brooklyn Nets win the championship. Hot take, right? How do you think Kyrie handles the specter of this, the enormity of this entire series going back to Boston?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the storyline, man. And if he has a bad game one, like, everybody's going to be talking about it and writing about it and asking questions about it. I know, I don't know the time and Kyrie had in Boston, like national writers who are, more locked in on it. Certainly not as much as the fan base. And, I know enough that they have a reason to dislike him and just to dislike his behavior specifically when he was there. Totally understand that. All I have to say is that at this point of his career, Kyrie is nothing like that player who I've seen described, when he was in Boston and then obviously later in Brooklyn, nothing like that. And yeah, sure. In the regular season, when Dallas made their one trip to Boston, he missed a bunch of shots in that game. And you could say he was rushing it, or that, all the history and the baggage came back to bite him. You could say that. You could also just say that he had a bad shooting night. This is someone who has, I said inner peace with Jason Kidd, and that's a big word. I don't want to be making huge sweeping statements about, people and what they're
no,
actually
but I feel
feeling,
I feel like that's appropriate, Tim. I really do. I feel like that's
I think it is for Kyrie. I think it really is for Kyrie. Like he's got kids, younger kids. He's they were palling around outside a press conference. He did after game 4 and, making noises and he was, kind of looking over and checking in on them and then answering questions and, going long and detailed with reporters about, just his thoughts on his career. He hasn't really touched the Boston stuff. That's true. And I think he's probably going to, if we see a slightly different Irving, I'm very curious how he handles all the questions at media day. I'll put it that way. But this is someone who is happy in Dallas and also understands that Dallas is probably going to be where he spends the last few years of his prime. This is his best chance next to a superstar to go get another ring. And sure, it would be with a megastar once again, but there's something special about winning it twice and doing it with a different cast. It doesn't, Kyrie's career was never about going and winning it as the number one option. I don't think anybody has ever looked at Kyrie and said, well, you haven't done it as a number one.
Right.
I think everybody has the respect for him and the appreciation for him, for the player he is, and to partner with Luka and to do it as a 1B, and as a 2, whatever you want to call him, for him to be able to do that, if he's able to win this series with Dallas or get back to the finals, here in the coming years, his prime is, I think he's someone who's going to age fairly gracefully for the next few years. This is his chance. And so if it becomes a storyline, if he really looks rattled, I don't expect that. You've heard it. You've heard him in press conferences. Does he seem like a man who at this point of his career is going to be rattled by, the external pressure or some boos or a fan base that doesn't really like him, right?
Man, look, Boston is different. I'm completely with you. I think Kyrie, and I spoke to Kyrie a few minutes before game 4, maybe it was the morning of game 4. And I would think that's like my first extended, like, one-on-one conversation with him in a very, very long time, if ever. And yeah, he does come off like there is a greater, like, like nothing is going to be too big for him. Nothing is going to really get in his head. He sounds like balanced. That's probably the best word for him. He sounds more balanced than anything. And you said something that I really want to touch on before we go. As him being a number 2 option that people never will look at or never had looked at and said, well, you didn't do it by yourself. Like, people said that about Scottie Pippen, and there was no way in hell Scottie Pippen was going to be a number 1. People said it about Kobe Bryant, so he got Shaq up out of there. You know what I mean? People said that about, to some degree, LeBron James doing it with Dwayne Wade next to him, even though LeBron was the number 1, and having to do it in Cleveland without Dwayne Wade next to him, ironically doing with Kyrie Irving next to him. So Kyrie is in this special place where most number 2s sometimes get demerited for not being a number 1. Kyrie doesn't. Kyrie is just someone who fits malleable in almost every system. You can almost picture him playing next to any superstar in today's game. You can picture him playing next to Jokic. You can picture him playing next to Embiid. You can picture him playing next to Giannis. We saw him play next to KD and James Harden, and they were a sprained ankle in Milwaukee away from winning the championship in 2021. Don't let that fool you. Talk about KD's toe all you want on the line. It was Kyrie Irving's ankle that derailed that season, and then the COVID vaccine and everything else the next year.